Okay, welcome to the ordinary meeting of Council for the 28th of May 2025. Nala kadit wajak mort kayan karak nijawalilat butcher, we're jinang wajak kadijan, we're knitting bula yeah. We acknowledge the Whadjuk people as the traditional owners of the greater Fremantle-Walilat area, and we recognise that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important today. We do that this week in the context of National Reconciliation Week and Sorry Day. And I'll have a little bit more to say about that later on. But I think it's important that we take a moment to recognise that this week a redress scheme was announced for people who were members of the stolen generation. And then there was obviously people in our community who are affected by that and who are feeling, I think, a lot of emotion about that this week. The meeting's being recorded and streamed live online. While all care is taken to maintain privacy, visitors in the public gallery and members of the public submitting a question may be captured in the recording. We look like we've got a full attendance, which is excellent. We look like we've got no applications for leave of absence. Oh, you're right. Hey. Okay, he's attending, but not quite yet. Okay, thank you for the reminder to put my glasses on. And do we have any disclosures of interest by members in relation to tonight's agenda? That's looking like a no. There are no responses to previous public questions taken on notice. So I have two speakers for public question time. And the first of those is Joe Smith. So Joe, if you're happy to come up to the microphone, and you have 3 minutes.
3 minutes, fantastic. This won't take 3 minutes. Look, really, I just wanted to very quickly talk to the Vic Hall recommendation that's come forward. Just to put it out there, we did forward an expression of interest. So, of course, firstly, I should be feeling quite gutted by this. The negotiations with the City of Fremantle have been fantastic, and I feel really supported and really heard in this process. I think the recommendation, while I might push and pull against it in some ways. I feel entirely like we've been heard as a performing arts sector, and that what's on the table and what's being proposed is really beautifully thought out and actually reflects our expression of interest as well. So I'll be charging for IP. No, I'm joking. I won't be charging for IP. But I'm just really grateful for this opportunity, the opportunity to be able to access this space. This space will be used by Circus WA once it is spec'd up. At the moment, when I talk about being spec'd, we can't really do a lot in Vic Hall as it stands at the moment. We'll put holes in the floor and we can't actually do anything without an aerial rig in there. So it's quite complicated, so it could be at least a year before it is of use to us. However, the space will be used into the future as a devising space. This means we can enter into that space and create a new concept and a new project and a new performance space and do partnerships with big companies like Gravity and Other Myths, Circa, NICA, National Institute of Circus Arts, and companies like that we're already in conversation with. So this space will be an adjunct to the work that we do as we settle into our new space, and this will be on your agenda soon. Our development application going forward, and we do expect, against all odds, that we'll be walking into the substation by the end of the year or the beginning of next year. But please be aware that this process is still underway and there's a lot of risk in this. So while it's public knowledge that we're going through the development application, it is not public at this point in time. So we ask you just to hold on to that information until we do get a development application through and that we do find the funding for this building. There's a long journey. And thank you for the proposal. A lot of work from Pete Stone and Ali Doherty, and for your listening. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo. And the only other speaker I have listed is John Dowson.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. 2 items. I want to very briefly say something about the city plan and then C2505. So first of all, I'd like to thank Councillor Sullivan for his amendment to the city plan, because it's such a big item that it needs a lot more attention from the public. I know the developers have all received invitations to come and comment, because I saw the email, but the Fremantle Society hasn't been invited. So we look forward to a chance to get into that city plan and to discuss some of the complex and controversial issues there. So thank you, Councillor Sullivan. The second item is C2505, Mandaree. Now, on Monday, the Fremantle Society sent an email about our concerns about the item and the way we think it's totally one-sided and not balanced, and we think it's divisive. Now, in response to that, the Mayor released a video on the day of a large meeting at on reconciliation at the passenger terminal, accusing the Fremantle Society and me as president of racism. And in 35 years of living in Fremantle, I have never seen a mayor, or for that matter, any senior official, come out using council servers and emails and Facebook and so on to attack an individual and to attack an organisation that's been around for 53 years. So this is, for us, astonishing. We've never seen anything like this. We want to table a letter tonight to the whole council from a senior lawyer alleging serious defamation and taking action on that. So that's what I'm doing tonight. I'm handing up, first of all, I want to hand up the original copy from the lawyer, and then I want to hand up a copy of what we thought was innocuous, an email sent on Monday. And in closing, I just want to say that having spoken to a lawyer today, they have said that this is not a minor defamation. It's $1 million defamation. It's serious that what's been done by the mayor representing you is incredibly serious. So we are shocked and we hand up because we said what we said was trying to be uniting everyone and not dividing them. So here we go. I'd like to hand up the letter and the email. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And you're happy for those to be publicly released? Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, that's all for public question time. So I don't believe there are any petitions. No. So that's going to take us to deputations, presentations. I don't think we have any deputations or presentations. I know we have some elected member communication that we will come to in a minute. So I'll ask that someone move that we confirm the minutes from the last meeting of council. And that can be moved by Councillor Kamada, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Elected member communication, Councillor Kamada, I think you had a couple.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things which I'm really pleased to be able to talk about. Take advantage of my position here on council to do so. Look, on the last 2 weekends in the AFL, it was called the Doug Nicholls round, and it's to celebrate the contributions of Indigenous footballers in the game of Australian rules football. And it was wonderful to see Stephen Michael recognised as the 8th honoree for the Doug Nicholls round. And Stephen Michael, I have to confess a bias here. I grew up watching South Fremantle, and at that time he was definitely the greatest football to watch in Western Australian football, at a time when Western Australian football was as good as anywhere in Australia. And just to, I've got a little present for Councillor Graham, who I know is an avid South Fremantle supporter and life member. This is my 12-year-old scrapbook that you might want to have a look at. I think you're away that year. So that's when South won the flag. Stephen Michael won the Sandover medal. So that's my little bit of self-indulgence. So Stephen Michael is very well decorated South Fremantle and West Australian footballer who played between 1975 and 1985, inspiring generations of footballers. He's described as the greatest WA player not to make the move east at the time. He's a proud Noongar man, and his greatest legacy is probably not surprisingly going to be his work on the football field, but as patron of the Stephen Michael Foundation, which is supported by the City of Fremantle and based at Fremantle Oval. The foundation has engaged over 10,000 young people since its launch in 2017, providing life-changing experiences and programs aimed at supporting young people of all backgrounds to reach their full potential. He's a very humble person. For anyone who's met him, he's a wonderful guy who'll talk to anyone, anywhere. It's incredible. If you ever get a chance, seriously, you have to talk to this man. And he's just a fantastic role model to so many people. And he maintains that his foundation is for all young people, no matter what their backgrounds. So I just wanted to congratulate Stephen Michael and all the people that have been a part of this inspiring story, and there's been so many along the journey, and he would be the first one to put his hand up and say that he's been supported by so many people along the way. So that's the first item I just wanted to touch on. The other is I went last Friday to a sporting club roundtable breakfast organised by Alex and the team. And I have to say what a fantastic job that he does and how rewarding these breakfasts are to attend. On this occasion, mental health, which is big focus at the moment, was the subject that guest speakers, one of them was Georgia Patton, who is an Australian rower and health ambassador, and Rebecca Yeo from Sports West, and they provided valuable messages for our sporting community, and it's just one of the great examples of what this city does to connect its people with the city. So I just wanted to highlight those, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Councillor Kamada, and congratulations to Councillor Graham on becoming a South Freo Footy Club a life member recently, and up the doggies on the weekend. Councillor Lang.
Thanks. Just a brief update from the Perth Southwest Metropolitan Alliance. Last meeting was held here in this building, and with the pleasure of Ryan Abbott presenting and sharing some information to other members and officers from the region. They were quite interested in the software that Ryan's using at the moment to track our tree database, which was really enjoyed by all. Some progress on the United mapping program that the region is looking to consider using. We acknowledge that we can't roll out a United program right now because there's already contracts and budgets in place, but there is now an agreement for a more detailed meeting with technical officers across the region to share and discuss how we can map the tree canopy and other elements in the region using an agreed methodology and using an aligned language. One of the key things that came out of the discussion was the ability for us in the region to highlight what land is our land and how do we measure canopy on our land, but then also how can we highlight gaps on land held by agencies like Main Road, for example, to see that maybe we are hitting our canopy targets, but other agencies in the region are not, and how we can work together to try and increase canopy in that region. The other highlights of the meeting were our coordinated fox trapping program in the region. There's now a push to use combined funding from the region to buy more cameras and have a aligned monitoring program so that the various trappers that are used by the councils are all working together for the same larger regional trapping program. And special acknowledgement to Kath Broderick. It was her last meeting as facilitator after a couple of years and getting lots of runs on the board for the group. Just wanted to say my thanks to Kath for being our facilitator.
Yeah. All right. Couple of things that I wanted to give a quick update on because it's a big week in Fremantle. The National Reconciliation Week breakfast was an event that we were able to attract to Fremantle. It's historically always been at Crown or Optus or somewhere else, and we had entered conversations last year to see if it was possible to bring it to Freo, and with the support of Fremantle Ports and the Fremantle Passenger Terminal, 1,000 people attended the breakfast on Tuesday morning at the passenger terminal, and it probably, I would say, is the best event that I have heard. I mean, if you don't go back to like Yotha Yindi and Beastie Boys concerts and stuff like that, but in terms of use of the passenger terminal for a really significant scale event, it was just beautifully done. I would invite you to watch the presentations. They are online. They'll be on NITV and SBS, I think, for the next 5 years, which is quite impressive. The city was also able to present in the non-broadcast segment before the broadcast began. And what was really lovely was that we profiled some of the things we're doing through the RAP group, and Jeffrey Addison from the RAP group spoke to some of the work the RAP's doing, and also the work that we do every day at the Walyalup Aboriginal Cultural Centre. And Turid Calgarrett did a fantastic job speaking about what we do at the WAC. And, you know, really I think it was a significant moment in time to be there, to be looking out to Wodgumup, to have Richard Walley reflect on the really important work that's been done at Wodgumup that's really taken it now to a different place for Aboriginal people now that the important business of acknowledging what's happened in the past there has been done. It really has shifted a dynamic, and it can now be, in the words of one of the people who spoke, enjoyed as a holiday island. We've done the work that needs to be done to make sure that this place is a safe and respectful place for everyone to visit. So it was amazing to have it there looking out to Wodgumup. And then to hear from Pat Dodson, sort of the father of reconciliation, and Tremaine Baxter Edwards from Wyndham, who at 18 is clearly going to be the future leader of reconciliation, or one of them. So I would invite you to, if you get a chance, to view the presentations. They were really compelling. A number of other elected members were there, and I think a few of our staff and our RAP group. We are excited about the next sort of big reconciliation event that happens in Fremantle, which is in November, when Change Fest, which we're presenting in collaboration with Imagined Future, happens. So that's that one. And a pretty significant one, The other thing that's going on this week is the WA Tourism Conference, and I just want to acknowledge the work of the team in attracting that conference to Fremantle. There's 350 people. They're spending 3 days in Fremantle. It's a conference that spans, it's primarily at the Esplanade, but certainly it's been getting people out to make gin, to make dumplings, to go to the prison, to, do all the things that you can do in Fremantle and have a refreshed view of Fremantle. So the team worked really hard to get this conference to Freo. It means all the leaders in tourism in Western Australia are in Fremantle for a few days and actually experiencing what we offer. Special shout out to Matt Hammond, who gave a presentation yesterday that was apparently very informative and highly amusing. I think in terms of presentation Matt gives us, I think very informative is definitely one of the things we would say. I'm looking for highly amusing from now on in. The Tourism Minister, Rhys Whitby, has been in attendance. He's attending here in Fremantle today and tonight. I'll be leaving this meeting a little bit early because the Tourism Awards section of it is on tonight, and I've agreed to pop down there, and Deputy Mayor Archibald has agreed to step into the chair. And the other thing that's coming up that the team have achieved is the Cruise Conference Australian Cruise Association Conference in September, and the Australian Tourism Awards next year. So I think when you build all these things together, what you see is a really clear picture of people getting an updated view of what Fremantle can offer and going out into the world and selling our destination for us, which is, quite frankly, probably the best type of marketing that we can do. So, Councillor Lorber.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add, because there certainly were quite a few things that came out of the reconciliation breakfast that were extremely positive and very, just very, very enlightening. And one of those, I don't often recommend people go and watch a video, but the city put together a really well done and short video that really highlights the history here in Fremantle Walyalup. So if you do watch the broadcast of the breakfast, it will be played during the broadcast, but you can also go to the City of Fremantle's official social media channels. They put it up there as well, and I would encourage, if you haven't done so already, it is only, I think, 3 or 4 minutes long, but the staff obviously put a lot of work and time and effort into it and really did an excellent job. So I just wanted to add that to the list of good things that came out from the breakfast. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lorber. Councillor Van Dawson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to give a quick update. So on our sister city visit that, as everyone's aware, the Mayor and I attended a sister city visit recently. It was a 3-week trip to Italy, Portugal and Croatia to visit 4 sister cities we have over there. We'll be preparing a report which will come to Council, so that will have details of our activities and the outcomes of that trip. I just wanted to thank Council for your support, officers for their support and assistance preparing us for the trip, and also very much thank all our hosts over there who the hospitality was incredible and they looked after us so well, which was amazing. And it was just great, very educational and really enlightening for myself to see how much it means to the people there, us being there, but also those parts of our community. I learned so much and look forward to catching up with all our Italian and Croatian and Portuguese communities and sharing our stories. And we've got lots of ideas and how we can build those connections. It was amazing. So thank you for your support, and you'll hear more from us soon.
Thank you, Councillor Van Dawson. Okay, we'll get to our agenda. We'll go through in order of agenda. I'm hoping I'll be able to hand over to Councillor Archibald at around 7. So the first item is the development application fee waiving for 10 Parry Street. Councillor Sullivan moving that, Councillor Lang seconding that. Is there any discussion on this item? All right, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Thank you. And we'll go to the Mandaree Vision, Purpose and Guiding Principles. Mover for this item, Councillor Archibald. Seconder, Councillor Williamson-Wong. Councillor Archibald.
Thank you. I would like to make a few comments on this because I find it unfortunate that the impression that has been received is that this item is all we are doing for 2029. It is not all we are doing, but it is an important project for this city, and it needs plenty of time to be able to develop. One of the feelings that I had, and others shared this view, was it will take time and we must bring everybody on this journey. So just wanted to reiterate that. And it is a really important aspect of Fremantle, because 2029 is only important because in 1829, some people came to our shores and set up a colony. The place prior to that was occupied by the First Nations people, the first settlers, if you like, of the area that we now call Fremantle, and then in 1829, another group of people came in and occupied the area as well. We all well know that at first it was quite a kind of convivial meeting of the cultures, but with a bit of time it became very uncomfortable, particularly for the Aboriginal people, and then there is a very long history that's attached to some of the things that went on subsequently. But I just wanted to read just one little bit. So just remembering that we will be expanding this, it will be inclusive, and in the document itself it actually says we will be paying a lot of attention to colonial history. And just to add to that, the colonial history is quite a remarkable bit of history in itself, and none of us deny that. And the fact that the Roundhouse still sits there on Arthur Head and was something, when you think about people coming here, there was nothing here except for the First Nations people and how they managed the land. And the first thing they do is build the Roundhouse, pretty much. That's the only permanent, it's the oldest permanent building in Western Australia. So I just wanted to just mention, I know this doesn't take long, I timed it at home, so it's Deborah Gare, and this is a book, Empire, Faith and Conflict in 1829. And I just wanted to read this little bit because over time, the way in which we view 1829 has changed. People have started to think differently about it. They're beginning to pay much more attention to the prehistory of the state, which really wasn't discussed that much, particularly even 100 years ago. So it's important that we acknowledge that we are learning on this journey of being inhabitants of this land. So in the beginning, Fremantle was Walyalup. Fremantle was not native born, not a town like that dreamt by Wordsworth with little green fields, etc. It did not emerge over many decades from an agrarian community into an urban one, which was what happened a lot in Europe, but rather Fremantle was an idea, a plan conceived in the chambers of Whitehall by men of the Navy and the Colonial Office who intended in 1829 that it would be the next great experiment of the British Empire. That it was an old country belonging to Whadjuk Noongar was thought to be of little importance. After all, James Stirling had described the native people he encountered in his exploratory visit there in 1827 as harmless. Indeed, their existence was written out entirely in the information distortion that surrounded the proposed new settlement, when Stirling's loaded promises were turned into advertisements for migration. Thus, when Stirling's gentlefolk, and they were a lot of very, very lovely gentlefolk, arrived at the Swan River later that year, they stepped ashore confident of their claim of its ownership, unconsciously mirroring the sentiments of the Georgian... Oh, sorry, forget that little bit. Yet, as the reality of the colonial experiment set in, as promises were broken, and most importantly, as the frontier descended into violence, things had to change. Regardless of class, station, wealth or education, the Britons who arrived in Fremantle commonly assumed in the greatness of the British Empire and its right to acquire this portion of New Holland. They were, after all, part of what James Belich now calls the settler revolution. the settlement at Swan River must be understood in the context of this settler revolution. It was, in every way, a product of the empire and a declaration of faith in British society. Sorry, I've just got this last little bit. So I just wanted to put it in that context, that these people came here and it was as much a big journey for them as it was for anybody else. But when we look at the many aspects associated with this, if we go back to some of the publications, and this is why I think it is really important for us to consider how these stories are viewed, how we look at it, particularly now that we understand prehistory so much better. We know people have been in Fremantle for more than 45,000 years. It is not insignificant. And books like The Western Gateway, first published in 1948, which was for the centenary of the Fremantle Town Trust. It's a very different story to what is published in, say, A New History of WA, which was published in 1981, 2 years after the sesquicentenary of the settlement of the colony. And the differences are because historians spent a good deal of time looking at what they could learn, how they could analyse data and all the rest. And A New History of WA was written in the belief that history ought to be an upending dialogue between the present and the past, that the past ought to be reinterpreted in light of the current preoccupations, and that the reinterpretations themselves may generate social thought and action. The work presented is a reflection of years of learning, discussion, consideration, and we invite our community, this is what these people said in the sesquicentenary, we invite our communities to be part of this journey. I think in the 50 years since, we have learned so much more, and this is just such a great opportunity for us to start that journey over the next 4 years. Of course, Wallyalup and Manjari, we know were places that were very important to people here. And Manjari refers not just to Arthur Head, it refers to that kind of whole area down there. So we're starting there, and we will be going through and looking more at colonial history. So much more is known since 50 years ago. So, and to me, it will be a fabulous journey. They're looking at some of the documents by people such as Mary Ann Friend and Jane Curry and all these. We can see so much more now and understand so much more. So I look forward to that journey. I want it to be inclusive, I think, as does every member on that committee. And it would be very unfortunate if it's not seen as anything but that, as a journey that we can all go on. So I very much recommend this item to you.
Thanks, Councillor Archibald. Councillor Williamson-Wong has seconded. Did you wish to speak now or hold off? Cool. All right. Councillor Kamada.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Fitzharding. Fantastic summary, Councillor Archibald. You've done a great job in chairing that group. I've been a member of that group, and I have faith in the process. However, along the way, I have been asked many questions about the process, how it will work, who will be involved, and the great thing about this agenda item is that it confirms that community engagement will proceed as part of the next stage, which obviously is very important, and that's why I have put up a small amendment if it is seconded. I think it strengthens this commitment, and it's as simple as that. That's why I've put that up, and it's just, to me, just a signal that this commitment is real, and that's why I've put that forward. So if I have a seconder, I'm happy to put that forward.
Councillor Moughlin, seconding that. Sure. Did you wish to speak further on the amendment? No. Did anyone else wish to speak on the amendment? Councillor Thompson?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I don't have any problem with the amendment, but I guess in listening to what Councillor Archibald said, I'd probably just take out the word local, because it's in the context of the founding of Western Australia, and I think there are other historians, as she's just pointed out, that would have detailed knowledge of that area. So again, I think just take out the word local.
I tend to agree with Councillor Thompson on that. Are you comfortable with that, Councillor Kamada, taking
Yeah,
out
I'm
the word
certainly
local?
I'm very comfortable with that. I mean, I saw local as Western Australia, but it goes beyond that even. So yeah, I'm very happy with that.
Yeah. All right. Back to the amendment. Do you have any further discussion on the amendment? All right, so I'll put the amendment to a vote. All those in favour of the amendment? And against? I think that's unanimous, so we'll go back to the item as amended. On the item, Councillor Williamson-Wong.
Thank you. I think that this is a fantastic document and a very exciting and important piece of work. And I did want to thank all the people who've involved, especially Councillor Archibald, and also all of the Whadjuk Noongar people who've given their time to creating and helping form this vision. I think when we think about the kind of history and then trajectory of the document and the project, it's really important and great, I think, to see that there has been a space specifically created for First Nations people to help form the start. If we think about 2029 and Manduree and Arthur Head, we know that there is a clear power imbalance between First Nations people and us sitting in this room, and the people who've always sat in the council chambers and kind of set directions for our, the structured directions for the city or post 1829. And that colonial history has meant that often First Nations people have a very valid lack of trust in big systems and structures, and often do not feel welcome in buildings or spaces. And I think the team's done a really fantastic job in making sure that the door is open for conversations and for the engagement to be done very authentically and organically, I guess. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and say thank you for creating that space. And it was interesting, Councillor Archibald, sharing that story and the way history has been written or shared differently, and the opportunity for us to be curators of how we tell the story of 1829 in a way that balances the history that was here far, far beyond 1829, and then the history that has brought us all to be sitting in this room tonight. As the Mayor noted at the start of the meeting, it's Reconciliation Week, and while I couldn't be at the passenger terminal, I did watch the live stream from the Community Legal Centre in Rockingham, where I'm doing a placement at the moment. And I did take some notes, which I briefly will share, but I think something that came up was that Walyalup has always been a place of opportunity. Many people have arrived here from migrant communities, many that Councillor Van Dawson and Mayor Fitzharding went to visit our sister cities from. There's always been a sense of being able to do amazing things, I think, in Walyalup, and the opportunity for us now is how we make space to celebrate and honour the two different histories of this one place and bring them together, which is a very complex task. Richard Wally made a comment on yesterday morning. My goodness, it actually feels like a long time ago. Only yesterday morning, that for everything gained, something was lost. And I think it beautifully sums up the kind of awful but exciting task for us to create space to hold both stories. And to me, I think it's also important that we do acknowledge that we need to bring all of the different voices into the room, because if we don't do that, then there is a risk that, the two stories never get to cross over and be shared. And the Wodjmut Biddies project, which is what's been happening on Rottnest, has, I think, shown the strength in making sure that the stories pre-1829 and post-1829 are shared together, and how we move on from that. So very excited to see this document come forward, and thank everyone for their work to get us here.
Thanks, Councillor Williamson-Wong. Councillor Moughlin.
Thank you. I'll be brief and just say that I'm really excited to see this come forward. Knowing over time that there's most probably been quite a piecemeal approach to the management and development of Manduree and the activities that we see down there. I think it's quite exciting for us to have the vision and purpose and the like, and the guiding principles in front of us. And I didn't speak on the amendment from Councillor Kamada, but the inclusive nature of the engagement that is going to occur, and I'm sure as we work through that process, the line in there around relevant community groups is really important, and that this will evolve over time and ensure that the right voices are being considered in that development. And I look forward to seeing the feedback that we receive and what the precinct can become for everyone in the future.
Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. It was great this week to be able to watch the video that the city has produced, that our colleague and a very long-time friend of mine, Brendan, was a star in. But it also, very importantly, reminds us all as a community just how much work our community, including the City of Fremantle and the council, over decades, has done towards a journey towards reconciliation. And this is simply another part of that. But it also reflects that journey has always had people that would seek to push back against it, seek to push back against reconciliation. And I guess it's important this week and every week to talk about the desire to invite people who are interested in history, who are interested in education, who are interested in community and healing and kindness, to come forward and embrace this journey that seeks the truth, because that's really, at the end of the day, what this journey is about. And we can talk a lot about history and the way it's presented and the way it's been recorded and the like. But history has not been fully written with regard to Australia, as we well know. And people that are pushing back against the desire for truth-telling, the desire for reconciliation, need to kind of have a good look at themselves, in my opinion, and ask themselves why they would do that. We need to acknowledge how one-sided and biased the historic record is and continues to be. We need to acknowledge how much information during the colonial conquest, invasion period, call it what you will, was and still is suppressed and denied. There is a lot of information that we are hearing about now that suggests that the historic record was, in fact, deliberately presented in ways that did not reflect reality on the ground. It's been suppressed. It's been denied. We also need to reflect on the very unfair nature in I guess, European way of telling history that favours written history over oral history. And we know that First Nations people around the world, many have a far greater tradition in oral history, in storytelling, than in writing things down in the way that perhaps Europeans have done. So I'm hoping that we don't go through another process of polarisation. You know, in the context of the things we see around the world where politicians and the like are deliberately stirring up the kind of hatred and the kind of polarisation. It occurred here, in my opinion, in this country through the No campaign. We see it in America as we speak, sorry, the United States as we speak. And it's not good enough, and we are better than that, and we know Fremantle is better than that, and that is why this is just another in a great line of excellent paths forward. And I thank Councillor Archibald and her committee and all of the people that have worked on it for getting us this far. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. I won't repeat what Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Williamson-Wong have said, but they do very strongly echo my own views on this. And I think reading over the item again, the language here is about the language of celebration, of vibrancy, of, there is absolutely a need for acknowledging the full history of the place. But the future we're trying to create is one that engages people. And when I look at the success we've had in reconciliation, it's because we've created opportunities for people to come together and have real experiences and real conversations and talk about the things that feel like they're taboo or off the table in respectful and kind and warm forums. I look at the truth-telling, backyard truth-telling events that we held where people came and sat together and talked about really difficult things, but they did it in a respectful, kind way in someone's backyard. This is inviting strangers into your backyard. It's a big thing to do, and it happened in Fremantle. We lead the way on how to do this in a kind and respectful way. And Mangaree, Arthur Head, Bathers Beach, the Roundhouse can be a high point of that. It can be a hub for those kind of activities. And I think we should be excited about that. I mean, the long history of Mangaree, the 45, 65, 50,000 year history of Mangaree is of people coming together. And isn't that what Fremantle's about? Isn't that who we are? Isn't that what everyone loves and celebrates about Fremantle? Isn't that why the tourism conference is here this week? Yes, it is. Because we all love Fremantle. We love this place. We don't have to love it only in parts, only in segmented sections of history. We can love the whole, love it in its multitudes. And nobody loses from that. Nobody loses. So I think when we talk about having a vision for this area, it is a vision that aspires to be the best of what Fremantle is. And the best of that story of reconciliation that has been going on since Council started adopting reconciliation plans in the 1980s. Like, if you're fighting against it now, I feel like the train has left the station. This is something that's been embedded in our community for a very long time. And it's why we get a 75%, yes vote in the booths around the Fremantle local government area. So this is just the start of the work. A group has been meeting. I think there's been concern that there were Whadjuk elders invited to be part of that group. I think Councillor Williamson-Wong has addressed that perfectly. It's entirely appropriate. And now we go out big. We go out to the community, and I'm sure the community will want to engage and be excited to engage in how we vision this to be a legacy piece for Fremantle, something that tells our story for everyone for the long history going forward. Do we have any further speakers on the item? Councillor Lorber?
Yeah, I'll keep it really brief because I think a lot of you guys have all covered up some very excellent points. The only thing that I guess I wanted to add to this conversation is that we were at the breakfast. It was acknowledged that Fremantle is leading the nation in our reconciliation and our efforts to deliver our RAPs. We're one of the people, I guess, communities that are way out in front on this. And I heard that, and I just couldn't shake the feeling that I personally feel there's still so much more to do. And I think, we all in this room feel like there is a lot more to do, even though we might be, way out in front of the nation. There's work there, and we're not going to sit back and just rest on those laurels. And this bit of work here, I think, is going to really bring our community on board. We'll have the chance to bring a lot of diverse groups together and really, as the mayor said, make Walyup what it has always been, as a place for people to come together. So I'm excited to see this work progress, and thank the staff for all their incredible work on it. Thank you.
All right, I think we're probably ready to put this one to a vote. So all those in favour? And that's unanimous. Thank you. All right, let's move on to Victoria Hall Expressions of Interest Process Update. Councillor Thompson's moving the officer's recommendation. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Lorber. Speakers on this item? Okay, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. That's going to take us to the City Plan City Centre draft report. Can I have a move of Councillor Van Dawson? Did you want to move that as chair of the Are you chair of that group? I think you are.
Yes, sure. I'm happy
Yes.
to move that.
And a seconder for that one? Councillor Thompson got his hand up first. Did you want to open debate or speak later?
I'll just speak briefly to start, just to thank the officers for their report and putting this together. It's been a long process, and as you can see, it's a big document, so a lot to go through, and look forward to receiving the community's input before it's finalised before council in future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, do we have further speakers or are we going to go to the amendments? All right. Councillor Sullivan, did you want to go to your amendment?
Thank you. I'd like to move the amendment that was posted, just with one wording change in part 2, taking out the word advertising and replacing it with the word consultation, because we refer to consultation in part 1. So it's really just a change in the semantics, if that's okay with the Mayor. So I'll move that way.
Sure. Yep. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Williamson-Wong? Yep. Cool. Did you want to open up?
Thank you. I was reminded today, I'm going to start with this. I was reminded today of a statement that was made as part of a long paper, but Ian Kerr reminded me of it today, and he's not here, which is the first time in a long time.
Unusual.
But he indicated, well, the statement is that planning should not be a substitute for action. We need to do both. And there is an element of, chicken and egg, and there's an element of cart before the horse or horse before the cart with this. But we very clearly need to be able to do good planning, and to do that we need to bring the community along with us. We need to bring the whole community along with us. And we also, as a body, as a council, we need to own the strategic planning, because that is our fundamental job, is to set the strategic directions for the council, and then it's the city's job to implement them. And we need to get that balance between doing the planning and doing the actioning of that planning, right? We need to set realistic objectives and strategies. And this is one of those documents that has an enormous amount of consequence, but also an enormous amount of deliverables that would need to be delivered by the city if we're going to genuinely put out a document like this. So I think that's why I kind of felt the need to not endorse it immediately, to make sure that but to certainly authorise it to go out for the broad community consultation, the extensive consultation that's referred to in the amendment, but also to ensure that the council itself pays homage to the critical importance of this document in a process of delivering the outcomes that are suggested in it, and really cast its eye across it and really understand whether, well, not whether, but how we as an organisation can deliver the bits that we need to deliver, and how we can advocate for the bits that we know others need to deliver, whether they be in the private sector or in other areas of government. So I've drafted this amendment because I feel this document is too important just to do regular, chuck it out for a couple of weeks and get a bit of feedback and then bring it straight back into council, and to allow me to have my 5 or 10 minutes when I probably want an hour or two to talk about it. Thank you.
All right. So we're on the amendment. I had some questions that maybe I could put now. And these might, I assume they're for officers. I'm assuming officers have worked on the amendment. What are we seeing as being the distinguishing features between advertising and, extensive community consultation in terms of time frame, process, methodology? And to what extent is it repeating some of the consultation that's been done? I guess my context is I feel like I've been in a lot of workshops on the city plan with external parties, with students, with so I'm curious as to what the implications of this are. So I don't know if that's a manager question or a director question, or if it's been given consideration. Okay.
Through the chair. At this stage, we don't have a fixed time frame for this consultation. So as to whether it's advertising or consultation, it's probably less critical as much as the time that we're going to take and the feedback we receive and how much from that feedback we develop or build back into the city plan work itself.
All right. Is there a further comment on that? I'm just hearing conversation next to me as well. No. Yeah.
Through the chair, consultation normally takes between 2 and 4 weeks generally. I presume this is getting closer to the 4-week period.
So perhaps to convince me to support the amendment, Councillor Sullivan, in your closing, you could address what you think, you know, that the extent, size, scale, who, what, how of the consultation, because I'd be keen to understand that, I guess, to delineate from the consultation that's happened already to date. And I'll continue to speak now because I think I am speaking. I think the concern I have is that this is a vision setting document, and the rubber hits the road for me when we initiate a scheme amendment to codify some of the things there. There is an extensive process around a scheme amendment that will be long, painful, drawn out and extensive. But I also feel that that's the point where it's like we will really get into the meaty discussions about, you know, what does codifying some of this look like. A lot of this does require implementation plans and next level plans. I'm also of the mind that those will go to consultation, whether that be sort of more at a streetscape level, an integrated transport strategy level. We will need to consult on those individual plans as well, if you like, the supporting documents. So yeah, I'm curious, I'm on the fence about this one, whether it's necessary to do this now, which I think will potentially extend the timelines around what's already been a year-long, I think, process, or whether it comes through the scheme amendment and it comes through those supporting plans. I'm open to being convinced, but that's my sort of curiosity. Councillor Williamson-Wong.
Thank you. I'm just going to speak to the amendment now. I will save my main things when we get back to the item, whether or not it's amended. But I do support the amendment. I think that the comments around the scheme amendment, advertising and consultation, there's a difference between the scheme amendment consultation and a city visioning document. And I think actually it's probably also the buy-in from community, right? Like if there's a scheme amendment consultation, most people aren't necessarily going to understand that language that's used. I certainly wouldn't have understood it before I either studied planning law or have been sitting in this room. And I do think that, yes, there has been community consultation, and I think the work of the team's been great in the focus groups, but it hasn't gone out to the wider community for the same level. And if we're talking about extending this process by a matter of weeks and getting more buy-in from our community, who we really need on board to deliver any of this, right? Like if we don't have Fremantle people necessarily wanting to open up businesses or do things in our city centre, we're going to struggle to make this plan work. So I'm very happy to add, it seems like it's going to only extend the process by a number of weeks, and it feels kind of insignificant in the overall timeframe, and also very important to make sure that our community feels heard and included, and also they have more of a sense of ownership over the document once it's finished.
Okay, Councillor Lorber.
Yeah, I'm really, I think, I support this amendment that's before us for a couple of reasons. One is, I think as a body, endorsing something before we've gotten that feedback is just not, personally, it doesn't feel right to me. I think we should put it out for feedback and that consultation and have it come back to us, and then we either endorse the product or not. If we endorse it beforehand, it's pretty much job done in my view. And yes, this document, while there will be consultation, as Councillor Williamson Wong just pointed out, for the scheme amendment, this will really inform the language that I think that scheme amendment will ultimately have. So it is a big document with lots of detail. So giving the time for the community and also those of us that haven't been in these extensive consultations with the community throughout these past several months or year, I think would be very, very helpful for such an important and document that will, hopefully shape our city. I don't think there's anyone around here. If this just said, we want more people living in the city center, and that was it, I don't think there's a person around here who would disagree. But because of the level of detail in there, and I think it is worth for us to really go through it if we're going to put that out as this is what we're all signing off on. Because I mean, just going through, and these are just, technical kind of, things that I assumed would get picked up in a consultation process, but this document talks about 30,000 person capacity at North Fremantle. Well, state government's already talking about 50 to 55,000 people. It talks about, the city had some involvement with a series of workshops around the future of Fremantle site, but I mean, we had more than some involvement. I mean, the mayor served on the committee. So I think there are a few things like that that are in here that we can really take the time to go through it and make sure that we're getting everything right. So that way when we do adopt it, it's a document that that describes our vision that I think most of us have, which is more people living in the city center and loving where they live. But also those details are, not unassailable because they probably won't get everything 100% right and things will change over time, but they're as accurate as they can be. And that little bit of time, I think, putting it out to the public, bringing it back for us elected members to have a systematic and a thorough dialogue about what's in there, I think will only make this document better. So I'll be fully supporting the amendment that's before us.
Councillor Mofflin.
Yeah, I concur with my fellow elected members who support this amendment. And yeah, I think for the gravitas of this document, it's only appropriate that we have that level of engagement with our community to ensure that the appropriate input is there. And if, for whatever reason, our community already see this document and think this is great, they can provide that feedback, but there's also that opportunity to provide additional thoughts as part of that. And I don't think, from an elected member's perspective, that an additional few weeks or even a couple of months on this work to ensure that we get it right and that we all understand the direction that we're setting for our city for a long period of time. It's not just something that we're going to throw out for a year or so. Is done properly, and that front end loading isn't something that we would regret later, but we could regret not doing the work down the track.
All right, Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I guess I'm a word nerd tonight because I'm interested in what the difference is between community consultation and extensive community consultation. It seems to me that implicit in that is we do something that we don't normally do because we do a lot of community consultation. And secondly, the word thorough. What's thorough elected member review? I mean, either we always do a thorough elected member review or we don't. So it's like saying, you guys got to be really, really, really on top of this, which I don't disagree with. So it's just, look, community consultation, we do it. Elected member review, we do it. We don't have to have adjectives that raise it to a higher or lower level, that's all.
Are you asking the mover whether he would consider dropping those words?
Leave that up to him, Madam Chair.
I would ask him whether he'd consider putting by the end of July at the end of 3, if I had any more speaking time. Councillor Van Dawson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to speak on the proposed amendment. Firstly, just thank you, Councillor Sullivan, for putting this forward. I 100% support this. I think it's a great initiative, so thank you. As the chair of the working group, I just want to confirm my support and, and would support an amendment to be brought by the 1st of July as well. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Sullivan to close.
Thank you. I did when I first wrote the amendment as to one, the critical part of it was to basically change the endorsement to authorisation. I felt that was really important. I felt it was really important not to go out to the community saying, we're pretty well finished, what do you think? The extent, I didn't know what was the right word to use for the community consultation, whether it should be extensive or not, but as Councillor Thompson would know, we do have documents that have a policy that talk about the different layers of consultation. I probably should have gone to the policy and found the exact right word, but like a draft document, like a draft city plan, there are lots of semantic errors in there and lots of detail that does need to be picked up, but I think you get the understanding that it's what I'm proposing in the amendment is something more than just simply saying, here it is, in a month's time we're going to look at it again at council, tick and flick, it's the end of a process. Surely you've seen it before. If you haven't, you must have been under a rock somewhere. And that's the issue that I really wanted to raise here, is that a lot of people kind of have been under a rock for this process. So there has been extensive engagement, but that extensive engagement has been through a lot of focus groups, the relatively targeted approach, and even for elected members. There are some elected members in this room who were invited, were participants in focus groups and the like. And there are other elected members in this room who weren't. And so the point is that the other elected members and the broader community do need to get that sense of ownership over this document. It is such an important document that we need to bring the entire community along for the journey. And, you know, if we really want to make those subsequent more difficult processes like scheme amendments a little bit easier, then you get this document right and you get the ownership of the council buy-in on it and you get the ownership from community buy-in on it. And the best way to do that is to make sure that the community feels like they are being the broad community. They've been given the opportunity for genuine consultation of this really critical document. So I hope you support that.
On Councillor Van Dawson's request to add by end July, yay or no?
I said I wasn't changing it, but I'm more than happy for someone to move an amendment to an amendment, which is quite possible.
All right, so I'll put the amendment as printed on the screen. Oh, Councillor Archibald, Councillor Sullivan's closed on the amendment.
I meant
don't wish to speak.
after this.
Could I just ask a question?
Sure.
No, it's closed debate.
The presiding member says she can ask a question.
I just wanted to ask the question. If he is proposing, Councillor Sullivan is proposing to put July in, I just wanted to ask staff. No.
He's not.
Thank you. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay, so we'll put this one to a vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Okay, back to the item as amended. Councillor Van Dawson, did you want to... Oh, Councillor Williamson-Wong, you want to speak on the item? You want to move another amendment? Okay.
I want to speak on the item. Thank you.
Okay, go.
I feel like I wrote my meeting notes and the first line for this and the Manjari item were the same in that it's a fantastic piece of work that's come from great consultation. So I did want to thank Russell and Pat and the team because it's a huge piece of work to pull it together. And we have, there was a document before, this is coming after that. So to look at all of the work that was done then and then add on to that is huge. I really agree with Councillor Sullivan and what he's raised in terms of that while it's important that the city plan is clear about our vision for the CBD, we also need to be clear about the inevitable reality of what we can deliver. And on a kind of technical point, and someone who got raised by architects, I noticed that lots of the renders have many urban greening in them, which is great, and it's one of the priorities, but I do know that we have an issue with planting things in our city because of the services underneath. So I guess my point is probably copied from something my mum always says, which is, can you please make the renders and make all the plants dead? Because that's what it's really going to look like, which is potentially pessimistic. But I do think that in terms of creating a document that speaks to the vision and the reality, it is important that there is an implementation plan, which I know will come from here. And I was extremely excited about the projects that were pulled out, the train station forecourt, Cantonment Street and Essex Street. I think if those 3 projects were delivered, then we would have a fantastic outcome at the end of this city plan. This is, of course, a very long-term strategic plan. I will briefly speak to the amendment that I know is also in our additional docs in relation to Colley Street, because I do think Colley Street is an important connector, and I'm very happy with our previous decision as a council to look into the project proposal something. But I am not necessarily convinced as of yet that it is such an important or priority project in comparison to some other streets that it would be brought up into the document. I think that Colley Street is a very interesting street. It should be one of our fundamental and kind of priority routes from people from the Esplanade into the CBD, but it's constrained by the fact that the majority of properties along there are, as we know, privately owned, but they're also owned by people who have demonstrated that they don't necessarily want to buy into contributing to the Fremantle that the city plan has put forward. And I think that, we could invest in that street, but those property owners might not change, whereas we could have opportunities to invest in other streets where there are already many people and owners and businesses that are buying into the Freo we're trying to build. So that's kind of my opinion on the Colley versus other streets. And I think that it's an incredible vision that we have for our city and our CBD, but we also need to be, and I acknowledge that it's a very long form document, right? We're looking very far into the future. Whether or not it's another half of Jemima to go on the document, I can't do the maths right now, but we're looking far in the future. But we do need to be transparent and accountable to the fact that our CBD is probably currently not in its best state. And while that's not technically the scope of this report, I do think it's important to acknowledge at this point, we're talking about the future of our CBD, and it all looks great and it will be great. And we know that there are projects that are meant to be on site soon that will bring people into the city. But the argument is constantly presented that, this all relies on housing. It relies on us bringing development into the CBD and for our local economy to thrive. And I think that is certainly part of it, but we need to be thinking about short-term solutions because it's not looking good out there. I know of a lot of local businesses that are thinking about, packing up, moving out to the suburbs because they don't feel like our CBD is being loved. And I wanted to acknowledge that in the context of this report because I think strategic documents are great and we need a long-term vision, but we also should make space for thinking about how we're going to help the situation now. I think potentially through the thorough elected member review of the plan, which we will now go through, I am very interested to potentially think about the ways that other policies form part of this document. We know that transport, urban greening, city streetscape policies and implementation plans will come. I think one of the other key areas that intersects with this is our community safety, and I know that that's a plan that we have also coming in the pipeline, but these things intersect people's experiences in spaces, whether that be through urban design or the way that we make it a safe place to be, mean that people come back, mean that tourism conferences come back to our city. And so I think, the city plan is an incredible opportunity to bring lots of things in, and I hope that also we don't forget that we need to be working on the CBD that we currently have.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson-Wong. Councillors, I'm not going to speak or move my amendment because we're doing a thorough elected member review, which I think would be an excellent time to bring up any issues or challenges. So it's probably only if Councillor Van Dawson wants to move her amendment, otherwise we can... yeah, or if you want to move an amendment to add July, you would do that separately, and then you can speak to move an amendment without closing, is what I would say.
Yes, please. I'd like to move an amendment to amend point 3 to the end and add by the end of July if the mover of that amendment has no issue with that and council support it. Thank you.
You're the mover, so do we have a seconder? Councillor Thompson. Any discussion on by the end of July 2025? Whoa. All of you at once. Councillor Archibald.
I would just like to ask the staff the question, if we're going to do a thorough elected member review and we're going to do an extensive community consultation, how realistic is it to bring something back in by the end of July, which is thorough and considered, when it's already the end of May? 2 months. So I just feel like it might be a bit short.
Oh, look, all our work is thorough. So I don't doubt that the team can do a good job of bringing in, again, responding to feedback, hearing from the community, and then bringing something back to council. The challenge, I imagine, is in around how we stack the community engagement component with the elected member engagement component. But again, I think well, maybe I'll wait for the CEO to answer on that. But yeah, I think our team can do it if directed. Yeah.
Could I just ask, would it be more practical if it was August, because it just seems very short? Yeah.
So is the mover more comfortable with August, by the end of August?
Yes, happy to support that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Councillor Lorver, did you have a comment or a question on that?
Yeah, well, it's a little more comfortable with this than the previous deadline July for the same reasons that Councillor Archibald spoke to. But I just know that when Kavi has come to us and spoken about his community engagement, he has things planned out 3, 6, 8 months down the track, and it's all, I think that schedule of community engagement is pretty packed. So for that part of this, I'm just a little hesitant to put any sort of date on there. I'm happy to encourage staff to bring it back to us by then, because you know, what else is not going to get done that's already being planned, potentially, or what other projects that are immediately, you know, everything's been gearing up to happen right now, are going to get shoved out to the side, potentially. So without knowing that, I would just say, I don't want to set a hard and fast, I think we can all work towards that, and I would be comfortable with that, but I think I can't support by August without knowing all the other parts of the community consultation. So I like to think it could get done by then, but I just don't know.
Councillor Moughlin?
Thanks. I share that sentiment. I would prefer not to have an end date on there. Council's expressed our desire to do it well, and the expectation to do it in a reasonable time frame, but I wouldn't want to lock officers into that end of August period if there was a risk that it was going to go over and that we're going to have impacts on other work that needs to be done as well.
All right. Councillor Thompson?
Oh, just to say that it's a date. It gives something for officers to work to. If they can't do it within that time, they'll tell us and we'll set another date.
Councillor Sullivan?
I always like correcting words that I've written. I did realise, and I should have actually changed it when I moved my amendment, but it talks about presentation of the final draft to council for adoption. It's actually for consideration. We can't basically tell the council to adopt something into the future. Thanks, Mel, for laughing. So I would request the mover might change the word for consideration rather than for adoption. And I would even suggest that you could possibly say for consideration, ideally by the end of August 2025.
how's the mover feeling about this? Perhaps I can speak while she considers this. I am really concerned that we started consulting a bunch of people about this a year ago now, and it feels like there's a plan that, you know, so I appreciate broader community consultation, but I also think we've had discrete community consultation with a whole bunch of people who are wondering where the hell is this plan and what are you doing with it? So there's that element of it. The other element is the stuff that follows this is big. So if we want to do this, I actually think it should jump the queue and happen sooner. If this is a significant priority plan coming off the back of the strategic community plan, and yes, there's a lot of supporting plans like the community safety plan, like the bike plan, there's a whole bunch of other things that I'm sure we have scheduled for community consultation, but in one breath we're saying this is really, really, really important and we need to get it right, and in the other breath we're saying and it can wait at the end of the queue. And I don't think that's consistent. It is really important. We do need to get it right. The process is already underway. We're close to the sort of crunch time on this. To say it's going to wait in a queue to me seems deeply concerning, as you can tell from my tone. If we're doing this, let's get on and do it. Like, this is the moment where we've got some attention on it. We've got a bunch of community members who have already been consulted and are wondering what's going on. Like, crack on. I still prefer July, but August is okay. Where were we? Councillor Van Dawson? No,
Yeah,
Councillor Lorva with a question?
Just, I don't believe anyone said that this would go to the end of the queue.
But no, are you asking a question?
Yeah, I guess my question is, did anyone, does staff remember anyone suggesting that this would be going to the end of the queue?
I'm going to not take that as a question, Councillor Lorva. It's obvious what you're doing. All right, Councillor Van Dawson, did you want to close?
Just on this minor amendment, I just want to confirm, I'm happy with the changing adoption to consideration as proposed by Councillor Sullivan. I don't think I need to close. I think there's been enough debate. Thank you.
All right, we're going to... Doug was the seconder. He doesn't get to close. Cool. All right. Okay, can I put this on to a vote? All those in favour? And that's Councillors Archibald, Kamada, myself, Lang, Sullivan, Van Dawson and Thompson, and against Councillors Williamson, Wong, Lorva, Moughlin and Graham, so that is carried. We're back to the item as amended again. I'd love to put it to a vote. Councillor Thompson?
I'm only supporting that consideration because it's a verb.
Okay. You don't want detailed consideration? Considered consideration? All right. I'm putting it to a vote. All those in favour of this item as amended? And that appears to be unanimous. Excellent. Councillor Archibald, I'm going to ask for you to assume the chair of this meeting. And I am going to go and find out who has won a tourism award. Matt.
Okay, are there any other items people wish to speak on, other than the confidential item, which we'll do behind closed doors? No? Okay, so I'll move...
Hang on, sorry. I had one question. It's a very simple one. And it's partly because I didn't get through the item as well as I would like to have. On page 52...
For which item?
Of the monthly report, monthly financial report.
Oh, shall we move the item then?
Yeah, okay.
But what about statement of investments?
If you want to, yeah, whichever order, but I have a question.
Yeah, so why don't we have it? Yeah, that's what yes. Could we please move item 20, 21 and 22, seconded by Councillor Moughlin. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. We'll now move item 23, the monthly financial report, seconded by Councillor Kamada. And Councillor Kamada wishes to speak.
Yeah, just a quick question. Says in the summary of financial performance that we had decreased revenue from operating grants and decreased revenue from capital grants. Is that because we're still expecting money to come in those areas? And I'm sorry for having, I would have asked this normally at the IEM, but so I apologise.
Through the chair, that is likely to be a timing variance. So either the project has been delayed, or there's a delay in receiving the grant.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Great. Is there any further discussion on this item? All those in favour? That is also carried unanimously. So there are no motions of previous notice or urgent business or late items, but we do have confidential business. So I'll move that. We right? Yep. I'll move that we go behind closed doors, seconded by Councillor Moughlin. All those in favour? Yes, thank you. So Thank you. Councillor Sullivan, did you wish to say something? No, I just wanted to come out. Yeah. We've done it. We're out from behind closed doors. Thank you. I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you.